WWF calls us outlaws.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to episode 14 of the Middle-Aged Outlaws podcast. Today we are in Texas and we're trying to make our way out. Before we get to that though, I will introduce my right-hand man in all this, Adam. How is it going?
Yeah, it's going good, thanks. How are you?
Well, you know, where are we? We're at the start of June. Things are looking up. Scotland are going to win the Euros. Kicks off in a couple of days. And much like Dolph Ziggler, Shawn Michaels, Ahmed Johnson, Davey Boy Smith, Taka Michinoku, Chris Candido, Raven, Sabu Droz, and Bret Hart, we've been having some sunny days recently.
I wondered where you were going with that, but it all makes sense now.
The weather's been spectacular, so yeah, in this part of the world it makes all the difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. And apologies if I sound a little bit croaky. I've had a cold. It's not COVID. I've done a test, but it might let my voice down a little bit at times. I'm sure it'll be fine.
I'm delighted to hear that it's nothing too serious, but yeah, we'll let you off as long as you don't sneeze your way through the podcast.
I'll do my best. I think it's past that stage. It's all good.
Excellent. Well, we're in February now. We've had the delights of the Royal Rumble and the other WCW pay-per-view sold out. Sold out in 98. We're on the march to WrestleMania 14, and we're very focused on WrestleMania 14 as far as WWF programming is concerned, which feels like a nice change from the kind of current product where things seem to be made up the week before. Yeah. We're very much, like I say, we're very much focused on it. So before we jump into the No Way Out of Texas 1998 pay-per-view, shall we chat about the Go Home Raw before it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, it's been quite good getting into this stuff, just simply because we're not long off the Royal Rumble. Only a couple of episodes ago that we did the Royal Rumble, so you've got some continuity of storylines that are going on, and believe it or not, a lot of the storylines are continuing and they all join up. It's incredible. Some highlights from the Go Home Raw then. We had Stone Cold stealing Shawn Michaels' belt, his WWF Championship belt, which is vexing DX, particularly Chyna. Seems to be quite vexed about all this.
Yeah, she seems more annoyed about it than Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, but, she does.
She's the one who's definitely trying to do something about it. The others, I don't know, it's kind of like they have a tantrum and then get over it quite quickly.
Yeah. So she tries to pay Savio Vega and Los Boricuas to get it back for them, and we've had that relationship between DX and Los Boricuas earlier on in January. We saw that as well, and before that with the Legion, you know, when they all seemed to be attacking the Legion of Doom, and they were all trying to attack Austin before the Rumble as well.
Yeah, at least it all makes sense. It ties in. It's not somebody just coming out of nowhere or something like that.
Yeah. What else do we have going on? We've still got Paul Bearer cutting these outrageously amazing promos. This time, what's the backstory with Vader? I was kind of a little bit lost as to why it needs to be Vader that Kane needs to take out to solidify himself as the monster.
I didn't really get that in terms of tying it in. I mean, the only thing they really covered on the show was that the previous week, which we wouldn't have watched, that Vader had sprayed Kane with a fire extinguisher. So they mentioned that during the promo, and I think we see a video clip of it.
Right.
But yeah, there does seem to be talk from Paul Bearer that for Kane to become the monster, he has to get rid of this other monster. But I don't know if that just potentially, it's obviously something that's come up between where we last were at the Rumble and this show, so it's maybe something that's played out on TV a little bit.
Yeah. So we've got that going on, and we've still not got any sign Undertaker. at this point in time, and I was kind of waiting for him to appear both on this episode of Raw and then on the pay-per-view as well, but never materialised, which was quite refreshing.
Yeah, it's like they were able to just keep their powder dry that little bit longer than I think they would be able to nowadays.
Yeah, and I was listening to Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard, where they were talking about this time period as well, and apparently Taker's dad was unwell at this point, so they were able to give him some time off, so that's the kind of real reason for him not being here, but it works.
Yeah.
Obviously, Kane essentially killed him at the last pay-per-view, so you wouldn't expect him to be just storming out. You know, like if somebody got attacked by zombies, for example, and then just appeared on the next Raw or something.
Yeah, I've still never caught that, unfortunately. I think it's past now, so I'll just have to leave it.
I mean, maybe in like 25 years from now we could go back and do 2021.
That'd be great. It'll be my first time seeing it.
What else we got going on? We've got the Outlaws, who the previous week appear to have stuck Chainsaw Charlie and what's his face, Cactus Jack in a dumpster and thrown them off the ramp. So we've got them reenacting that with like crash test dummy type characters, and Road Dogg says to Billy Gunn, "Why don't you keep that and bring it up to the room?" Did you hear him saying that?
I don't have it written down, but I mean,
King laughs. King picks up on it and laughs at him.
Yeah, I don't know about you. I really like this version of the Outlaws.
Oh, they're brilliant. Yeah. So good.
And I think part of it, we mentioned this on the previous show, I'm sure, because we all know that we're not that far away from them being officially aligned with DX. But this period of time where they're on every show and they're just doing their own thing, and it's really over. They're, this heel team, but there's something pretty funny, pretty cool about them, something quite refreshing about them. But some of their antics and things like that, I just I found enjoyable, and I think I enjoyed the Triple H X-Pac and the Outlaws version of DX, but they're playing second fiddle as soon as they're in that group, whereas just now they're just doing their own thing.
They're their own thing, yeah,
pretty cool.
And they've always got the sports reference in the t-shirts when they come out as well, and the kind of cheap heat that they get is brilliant. I totally agree. What else we got going on? Steve Blackman.
Yeah,
we have got Steve Blackman on an undefeated streak. He defeats someone called Recon, I believe, who is part of the is this true? The Truth Commission?
The Truth Commission, yeah.
With Sniper, who looks an awful lot like what was his name? Bull Buchanan.
Bull Buchanan.
Is that the same guy?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah.
And they are led by Mr. Callis, what's his name? The Jackal.
The Jackal.
Who talks about the Jackalites, which I'm always quite uncomfortable with, that word. And during this episode of Raw, which seemed to take up a hell of a lot of time at this broadcast, he comes down from the sky in some sort of podium, and he's it's like those guys that stand at the top of Princess Street and they've got their megaphone, they're telling everybody about the end of the world.
Yeah. He's not happy with the way the commentators are putting over his movement and his guys, so it's like he wants to be the commentator for what's going on in the situation.
I see, right, okay. You've explained that to me a lot easier than what I was picking up myself.
But it's I don't know, it's hard to get into the segment when you don't really care about the people. Because I get the feeling they never went through that process of really making you care about Sniper and Recon. Yeah.
It feels like the Jackal could have been a decent character or a decent heel manager type character if he'd, like you say, if he'd had a tag team of some sort of worth, even if it was like the Quebecers or something like that that were getting some sort of prominence.
At least someone that the audience are familiar with. They've been around just enough time for the audience to know who they are. Whereas I think this is, you know, quite a few years before the Bill Buchanan character, and I don't remember seeing the other guy ever again.
Nah. Generic massive guy.
Yeah.
So a couple other things that are going on here. We've got the world's greatest ring announcer. Sorry, Howard Finkel, you're going to have to take a step back because Sunny's here making some ring announcements, and she does a fantastic job both on this Raw and on the pay-per-view.
She's a great ring announcer.
Incredible. Yeah, have you got any other highlights we should be picking up on here?
So we've got Rock and Farouk against Chains and Shamrock tag match, where the Rock cuts he does a promo about genetic cloning, and then says he's in favour of it if it's done very selectively, and then starts mocking the audience. It's really good. And then you've got a kind of a fight breaks out between Nation and DOA and Ahmed Johnson. You've got Shamrock applying the ankle rock to Farouk, and then one of those, you messaged me about this separately, one of those horrendous steel chair shots that Shamrock seemed to take quite regularly, delivered by The Rock, who I think we know has a little bit of a career in delivering some pretty brutal chair shots. And that one, it's like, you know, it looks like it's full on the face. It's not nice.
Why does it? It's not even exactly. It's full in the face.
Yeah.
And I text you saying, why is Shamrock's MO getting smashed in the face with a steel chair?
Yeah.
It's not even a head shot. It's a face shot. Really odd.
Yeah, I don't know why he feels the need to do that. We've got a little bit around the WrestleMania press conference. That's with right. Michaels, Austin and Tyson, and basically it's just a little bit of verbals between all three of them, really. You've got Austin and Michaels having a go at each other. You've got Austin making it clear that if Tyson gets in his way, he'll take him out. You've got Michaels saying the phrase that now that we've seen it, uses in every single promo, which is that he doesn't lay down to anybody. And then you've got Tyson stepping in between. You've got Tyson stepping in between Michaels and Austin. Obviously, a little bit of a, you know, precursor to the role he's going to be playing in the match. And they, I think, confirm him at this in that role in the match as the enforcer. I don't think I've got much else here. There's DX come out and do a promo basically at the end of the night, just talking about how he's gonna Michael's talking about how he's gonna take his title back. Austin comes out, swings the belt about at DX, but Outlaws come out to support DX. China sort of steals the belt back, and then the Cactus Jack and Chainsaw hit the ring, and so does Owen Hart, who is obviously got an ongoing issue with Triple H at that stage. And I think, did he maybe confirm Triple H v Owen for
WrestleMania? I think.
Yeah, or is that maybe at the next show?
So on the Raw, they've got Jeff Jarrett versus they've got Owen Hart versus Jeff Jarrett for the European Championship, and they say if Owen Hart can get through Jeff Jarrett tonight, then he'll face Triple H at WrestleMania. Yeah. Which is an interesting way of doing it. Yeah.
So they've kind of got a few stories they're moving on with there.
One final thing that you get kind of highlights from that press conference, like you said, and you get all the kind of the perspective of the American media coverage and the people in the news, and they're really kind of mocking, you know, like Mike Tyson and his wrestling friends and all that sort of thing. It's interesting that they chose to show that on the Raw.
Yeah, you would have thought that's the kind of thing they would edit out or leave out. But there was one thing, I can't remember where I saw or heard this. It's either in a book or on a podcast, but Eric Bischoff, that says that the while he's basking in the glory and winning every week and things like that, apparently the moment that WWE put Mike Tyson on their telly was the moment that he was like, oh, okay, they're kind of fighting back now, right?
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they had apparently had a chance to work with Tyson on WCW, but they shied away from it. I don't know if it was a little bit scared of the personality that Tyson was, or whether the network weren't that comfortable showcasing him, with a bit of controversy and things like that. So they'd backed off, but I think it just came across that Bischoff maybe wanted to do it because he thought it would sell, and then when he saw WWE had done it, he thought, okay, I am going to have a fight on my hands here.
Right. From what I'd either read or heard, we're both obviously consuming all the same stuff. I'd read that Don King had basically been using WCW to leverage Tyson's salary or payment or whatever it is. So, yeah, interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It's interesting from Bischoff.
Mm-hmm.
And I think similar to that, I think WWF had the opportunity to get Dennis Rodman.
Yeah.
Before when WCW did, and when was that? Was that 97?
Yeah, I think probably around then, yeah.
Like your early NWO days.
Yeah.
So we're pumped for the pay-per-view. It's an old pay-per-view, because these days you're kind of used to everything being built up to be the greatest show we've ever had, whereas this very much feels like a stepping stone to WrestleMania.
Yeah.
And I think when we were younger, certainly when pay-per-views became more frequent, especially around about this time of year when you've just had the Royal Rumble, you knew that's what sort of road you were on. You were on the road to WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Whereas, like I say, now I feel like everything's up in the air. You don't know what you're getting for WrestleMania. If you do, then you feel as if it could still be changed.
Yeah.
I feel like you know what you're getting here. Everything's just kind of being used to set things up. But I quite like that as well. Yeah,
I mean it works from watching it every week on TV. Like there's, even if your main event is set and some of your other matches are set, which it feels like at this stage you already know what some of them are going to be for Mania.
Yeah.
You can move the story. You don't have to be changing who's involved in things like that. You're just developing the story as you go, and it allows time for some anticipation to build. Because I've no doubt when we get to the actual No Way Out show, it's pretty obvious. It's kind of like it's a B show.
Yeah.
You've got some stars on it. You've got a couple of big matches on it, but a lot of it is not the sort of caliber that they, I think, try to cram into every show now, where it's almost got to be all the top guys are on every show. I think back then, I might be wrong in this, but I think these were actually cheaper shows and shorter shows, and they did that for a little while just to see if people would buy it, and then found out that if they put their stars on it every month, people will pay full price for a star packed show. But you've got people like, you mentioned Undertaker earlier, who isn't on TVs or a show for just a couple of weeks, a few weeks. But some people should be like that. Some people should be a special attraction. You shouldn't see... The thing that really annoys me about WWE, I feel like when you get your main event, you've already seen it on TV.
Yeah.
And they don't do that here. Michael's back injury will be playing a big part, but he's not even involved in the No Way Out pay-per-view. And he doesn't have any kind of match with Austin before they actually get there to the show.
Yeah. Yeah, there's obviously a lot of differences between then and now, but now you've got 2 and maybe 3 shows a week that you'll be seeing these people. Well, no, you've got 2 people that you're going to be seeing on the pay-per-view. You've got 2 shows. You've got potential engagements between people on Twitter, on Instagram, on whatever. Almost, you could possibly have that every day in between shows. There's obviously in 1998 you've got the one show. If you catch the show every week, you know what's going on. If you don't catch the show every week, you get the little packages, and there's not too much to cram in there. They put together a story quite well. So there's a definite argument for sort of oversaturation of what you get now compared to what you got then.
Yeah, I mean, I've no doubt a lot of it's not in their hands. I think if they could in some situations keep certain people off TV for a while, they probably would, but then you'll have the network banging the desk saying, why is, you know, one of your biggest stars not on the show? So yeah, probably some different pressures now.
That's interesting. I was going to say something, but I've lost it. It's gone. So let's jump into No Way Out of Texas. I think that this was initially an In Your House, and that was probably what I was going to say. Back to your point about this being like a B show.
Yeah.
The In Your Houses were obviously the shorter 2-hour pay-per-views compared to, like, say, your Royal Rumble, etc. So I think that this was initially going to be an In Your House, but they changed it to the No Way Out of Texas. If you look for it now, it's just under No Way Out now.
Okay.
But I think the whole kind of point of this was for it to be like a kind of B show. However, I also understand that when this was advertised, tickets, when tickets went on sale, the poster had Bret Hart, Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels, along with Austin on it. But you're talking this going on, you know, like tickets go on sale, obviously before November 1997. So yeah, if you bought tickets for this and then you're not tuning in every week and you're rocking up and getting what you've got there, you're probably pretty devastated.
Yeah, I mean, that's 3 of the 4 that you've mentioned that will not be on this show. Half the card, probably more than half the card, it doesn't leap out at you, but I suppose they've still got a bit of star attraction. I do wonder if Michaels didn't have the genuine back injury, you've got to think he's the 4th man in the match, so that takes away a chunk of the star power as well, which there's nothing anyone can really do about.
Shall we talk about Michaels' promos before we talk about the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
Do you remember, like, is this new to you? That his promos are just god awful.
Yeah, it's like I forgot somehow, or wasn't aware at the time, because we've always thought of him as being this, you know, charismatic guy.
Yep.
And so much of him is. And always thought of him as being a brilliant in-ring worker. Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, one of the things that's always said about quite a few others is they didn't have the promo skills. You know, it was said even about Bret Hart. Brilliant at everything else, but didn't have the promo skills. Well, Shawn Michaels doesn't have the promo skills. It's repetitive. It's boring. He's saying words without really saying anything, and I don't know. It was quite a turn off for me as I was watching it. I was kind of zoning out, you know, just not really listening.
They're a chore to get through.
Yeah.
And when him and Triple H are interacting and they've got China there and they're doing something, whether they've got that little skit set up or even if they're in the ring, you know, we had them in the ring that previous Raw and they were setting fire to the Undertaker's jacket and all that sort of stuff, and it was they were bantering back and forward and it was quite funny. But you're giving Michaels the mic to kind of sell that whatever's coming up, and it's like, oh no, please, you need to stop because this is awful. Monotonous, gravelly voice, just shouting the same thing, like you say, the same thing over and over.
I started thinking to myself, see when he makes his comeback, you know, years later, and has, you know, a few excellent quality programmes and matches and all that, I was trying to think back to then what his promos were like, you know, at points when he wasn't doing one of 50 DX reunions, just him actually trying to build to a match. And I think in my head it maybe depended who he was with or who he was opposite. So I remember him having some quite good interactions with people like Jericho, building up to a Mania match with him, but I'm not convinced that he was ever that good, even, you know, when he came back. And because I was trying to think, was he just too messed up at this point to deliver a good promo? And he's clean when he comes back, but I'm just not sure it's in him to do it.
I was trying to think the same in his second run, whether or not he was doing the same sort of thing, and I don't really remember him doing that sort of promo. I wonder if it's the style of promo and it's the kind of quintessential carrying the company, like I'm the number one type promo. It's the kind of thing you would expect, like, you know, when Seth Rollins was his kind of babyface character not too long ago, and everybody basically just ended up getting bored of him talking about being the best. It's that kind of same stuff over and over again. I wonder if it's just that style of promo, because I'm the same. I don't remember him being like that in his second run.
Because he's kind of, I think he was always near the top of the card when he came back, but he wasn't the guy. So he maybe wasn't needing to deliver those style of promos. That maybe just worked better for him.
Yeah, maybe. Anyway, let's jump in. We're going to go straight back to talking about Michaels, because pretty much as soon as we're on the pay-per-view, WWF are straight. It's like that kind of thing where somebody's been naughty and they've had to, like, as soon as they see you walk in the room, they're like, oh, let me please apologise for it. So they're telling you that Michaels hurt his back and he's out of the main event.
Yeah.
I always thought this was a work. I always thought that the whole point of this, and I expected to come into the Raw with something happen to him. You know, like when Austin was in the ring and swinging the belt about and all that. I expected something to happen to Michaels that meant he got put out of this match. And I always thought that they knew that he hurt his back after during that match at the Rumble, and that they would basically take him out of any sort of in-ring action until WrestleMania, but apparently not. Apparently he recovered from it, and then a couple of days before he hurt his back lifting weights. And that was his excuse. But yeah, they're straight in there to tell you that Michaels won't be in the main event, and they don't know who's going to replace him.
Yeah, this I have no issue with it because of what's on the show, but like you say, as soon as the show's on, you're focused on what is the title program. They're, I suppose, looking at the card, you know, there are some other bits and pieces on it. There's some quite, you know, it varies, but there's some quite interesting storyline situations on it. But you're left in no doubt what your focus is really supposed to be on. But I think it kind of works in a way back then that it sometimes puts me off a bit now. You know, I feel like now if I'm going through a show and I'm thinking, you know, talk about the first match and the build up to it, talk about, you often lose sight of the match that's going on in front of you because they're talking about the main event or something different. But here, I don't know, it just kind of felt right that the focus would be on Austin and Michaels.
Yeah, especially I think like how red hot Austin is in everything that he does. I don't think even still, when going back and watch this, I'm surprised at how over and how crazy the crowd are for him. So I think it makes, I agree with you. I know what you mean. It doesn't feel like it is big news, I suppose. If you're really looking forward to seeing the Outlaws and DX fight against Austin and Owen Hart and Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack, if you're looking forward to that, then to be told that what I think the flaw is with it is it then creates its own new, and throughout the pay-per-view it creates this level of intrigue as to who's it going to be. And obviously not too long ago you've had who is the third man across in WCW, and this creates its own who's the fourth man going to be. And I don't know if they anticipated just what that would do by taking Shawn Michaels out of this, but to me they handled it really, really poorly. Like when we were talking about who the main event was going to be, I expected Savio Vega to be in it, simply because I knew Michaels wasn't going to be in it, and that Savio Vega had been involved in like DX related angles. But yeah, I was reading some stuff from people who'd been watching it at the time and how let down they felt when it was like Savio Vega. And it's like, what?
Yeah,
Expected it to be Hogan or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because you sort of give the contrast to what was going on or what had been going on with the NWO in WCW, the intrigue about who's the third man, but they couldn't have delivered more on who that third man was.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big thing. This builds up through the show, as you say, and they go through a couple of different arcs with it, because they have at a point Triple H saying, we don't want a partner, we'll do it ourselves. And then the news is immediately, oh, they'll allocate you a partner, you know. And then that, I don't know if that was a way to try to, you know,
temper expectations.
Yeah, but it still didn't work, because it's nothing against Savio Vega, but you're talking about is he even mid card? He's an early card talent. Who everything I've heard and all that is excellent in the ring. You know, looks after you, makes everything look good and all that. But it's not about that. It's the crowd's expectation of how you replace Michaels. And I've heard so many times on the Pritchard podcast him say that if you need to make a substitution, you need to make it better than what you had originally.
Right.
And he said it so often, but this is just an indication of where it got absolutely nowhere near. And I think he maybe does, if you've listened to the podcast about this show, I think he maybe sort of references about how do you, in this situation, with who they've got unavailable, who they've got hurt, all that, how do you get anywhere near matching what they had or what they would have had?
Pretty much impossible. The only one that he spoke about who was a free agent at the time was Sid. Right. And said that they'd considered Sid. But yeah, you could create your own problems there as well as Sid in DX. Do you want that gigantic animal turning about the place asking people to suck it? I don't think so, but
no.
So that's an interesting one, and it could have went lots of different ways. I just think maybe if they'd been up front and said DX have had to ask Savio Vega to take place of Shawn Michaels because he's back or whatever, you know what I mean? Yeah,
totally agree with you. I think if you're not going to deliver on the name, don't let the expectation build through the show. Just say who it is straight away. That's probably the best way you can manage it from there.
Yeah, so one thing that I really liked about this, and something that you miss from, I need to stop moaning about current product, but something that you miss from current product is the kind of stage aspect of the entrances and the different pay-per-views. I like the cage kind of bit that they had at the entrance for the wrestlers coming out. That looked cool, and there was a few matches here where there was tag matches and the teams are all coming out one by one through this kind of tunnel with a cage. I just thought it looked pretty cool.
Yes. Yeah. I think that's because they're all generic now, aren't they? It's basically the same set for every pay-per-view. And I mean, I think it went on for years where each one had kind of its own identity, and that's gone, really.
Yeah, I guess it's easier just to use these big LED screens and put whatever you want up on them, but it's kind of soulless, isn't it?
Yeah, I agree.
So starting off, we've got a banger. I like to say that we started off with a banger, but we started off with a headbanger or two. We've got Marvelous Mark Mero with Sable, and our boy Tafkag with Luna against the headbangers. And my very first note on the very first page is this version of Goldust is absolutely terrifying.
Is he being Marilyn Manson? Is that what's going on?
Apparently.
Yeah.
So King refers to him as Manson Dust, and JR kind of gets into the swing of it and calls him Manson Dust a couple of times as well. Apparently Marilyn Manson was pretty big at this time, and Goldust was a fan, so that was why.
Okay.
I think it accentuated his size a lot more than that.
Yeah.
That golden all-in-one thing he used to wear.
Yeah, he did look big in this, especially compared to the people around him. You know, he looked a lot bigger. So yeah, it's maybe they never found quite the right outfit for him, because there's been a few.
Yeah, there certainly has. Yeah, and at this point in time, he seems to be coming out like the Goldust gimmick is gone. Obviously, he's going by the artist formerly known as, but then the Raw after he's fully Goldust up again, which is odd.
Yeah, that confused me as well, because I assumed he'd left the Goldust character behind, but he goes back to it. There was something I noticed in this match, and it's not related to really what's going on in the ring, but it's one of those where I'm not sure if I heard it right, but Tim White's the ref.
Right.
And on a few occasions, I'm sure they said Jim White.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And I'm thinking,
great stuff there.
Well, it was the first thing that went into my head. I was expecting it to morph into, like, I don't know, Transfer Deadline Day or something like that. But I just thought he's been there for ages and they're calling him the wrong name.
That's really weird.
And then I thought, did he play some different character? Was he Jim White for a wee while? Yeah, but
maybe,
it's
maybe
not
that
important.
was his. Remember when he was like a kind of suicidal character? Maybe that's his suicidal alias, Jim White.
Maybe.
Wears a yellow tie and carries a mobile phone everywhere. That's another one. I didn't pick that up.
Yeah.
So this is basically all about progressing the storyline of Mark Merrow and Sable's issues.
Yep.
Him being jealous of Sable and the attention she's getting. I mean, why would she not be getting attention? She's practically not wearing any clothes. It's a really weird relationship that we've got going on between Mark Merrow and Luna and Goldust. I don't really understand why they're aligned with each other.
Yeah.
It
felt just forced together. I know it built over a few shows, and I don't know if right at the start of their alliance there was a logic reason to it, a common enemy or something like that. But yeah, you're right that the match, its whole purpose is to take the Sable angle forward. And they're obviously already planning her, she's hugely over with the crowd.
Outrageously,
yeah. I mean, aside from Austin, I'm not sure anyone else gets a bigger reaction. So they've obviously got their plans in terms of what they're going to do with her, and I assume. I actually think Mark Merrow plays the role pretty well.
So do I.
He's good in it. It's a shame because it's kind of burying him while it's all going on. It's hard for him to come out of the whole thing with a positive, but he plays it really well, I thought.
No, I totally agree, and I think we spoke about in the Rumble, he spent the majority of his time in the Rumble just sort of ordering her about at the side of the ring. I think he's quite good in the ring as well. Like, there's a lot of sort of negative stuff being said about him, but I think he's actually quite good.
But I don't know if Vince ever fully bought in, because he wanted when he signed him, he was playing, was it Johnny B. Bad, I think, in WCW.
Yeah.
And apparently it was the gimmick Vince loved, but he couldn't use it for copyright reasons. So once he'd signed him, he had to use him as a totally different character. So it's a shame, because he might have got more of a push if he'd been able to be that character, but then obviously Vince would have got Sable on TV one way or another, and I'm not sure how she would have played into Johnny B. Bad gimmick, but anyway.
So this match is kind of, so it's like I say, it's the match is used as a vehicle to move that forward. At the same time, poor Thrasher gets busted open the hard way on the stairs and is just leaking practically this whole match.
Yeah, it's not good. I mean, they sort of play the match quite logically, where he's isolated from making the tag and things like that. But it's a bit of a mess, I think you actually messaged me saying he's a mess as the blood was pouring. And not to try to apply too much logic to it, but if somebody gets a bad bleeding injury, you're going to try and isolate him in the ring. So I thought the story played fine into it, but it wasn't a good look.
Nah, and I suppose the problem with the whole sort of problem with the ending, which itself was quite logical and quite clever, was that Sable came back down to the ring and the headbangers switched positions, and I always want to call the other one Chaz. What was his name?
Mosh.
Was he beat for cleavage? How can you say that without laughing? He was beaver cleavage, wasn't he?
I think you're right.
And was he called Chaz as well? Or
Chaz.
is that a made up thing? Is that someone else? Maybe.
Oh no, he was.
Was
he?
He
was. He was called Chaz. Yeah.
Anyway, they switched them about, but obviously it doesn't really work because one of them's a bloody mess and the other one's not. But
Tim
Chaz,
White would have picked up on that, but not Jim White.
Nah, Jim White's not a seasoned vet the way Tim is. So Chaz or Mosh or Beaver Cleavage, whatever you want to call him, he rolls up Mero, and the Headbangers get the victory. And yeah, that's us. So we have Luna and Sable going mad, trying to get at each other, don't they?
Yeah.
And they start sort of making Sable a little bit more physical in the ring.
Yeah. Yeah, you've got Luna. Luna always scared me a bit.
It's terrifying.
And she looks like she is really trying to get to her. I think as time goes, Sable, I think she kind of grows into the role. You know, she gets a little bit better at the reactions and the looking like she wants to fight and things like that. But I don't know how she wouldn't just be genuinely terrified by what was going on there.
Well, she more than makes up for it with her voice, to be fair.
Yeah.
What's more terrifying, Luna's character or Sable's voice?
I am going to go Luna's character.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I've got in my notes here, Sable's voice makes me want to die.
Yeah, I was never as much of a Sable guy as some people were, actually. And, you know, I don't want to get beaten up by Brock or anything like that. But, obviously a good-looking woman. You know, you put her on TV, that all makes sense. But, you know, if there's Sable and Sunny standing next to each other, I'm only looking one way.
You're going to pass up the grind. So, talking of Sunny,
yeah,
here she comes wearing some. She's wearing something. It's an unbelievable outfit she's got on here. So she's come out here be the guest announcer for the light heavyweight championship between the greatest named wrestler of all time, Pantera, who should have why are they not Why are they not licensing Walk?
Yeah, it's almost too obvious. Yeah,
he maybe need to get rid of the bear ears on his mask to make him look a bit more menacing. But yeah, that's what RVD used to come out to at ECW, I think. Walk. So we've got Pantera versus our light heavyweight champion Taka Michinoku. We've got a guest announcer in Sunny, and we've got a guest commentator in definitely not the son of Jerry King Lawler, Brian Christopher.
Yeah.
This, I'll go be honest, I did not enjoy watching this. The only thing that kind of kept me interested was trying to pick up on the amount of times that Brian Christopher said something outrageously offensive.
I was going to ask, if you didn't enjoy watching it, did you enjoy listening to it?
Oh my God. Yeah. Unbelievable. Yeah. This banter between JR and King about him not being his son is annoying.
Yeah. It's
I don't get it.
It's just I think I assume it's playing into some situation where, you know, Lawler hasn't wanted to acknowledge him because it's like, I don't know, he's not successful enough or something like that. That's how I always took it. And that I always thought you would get a payoff if you like won the heavyweight title or something like that, and King would suddenly go, my boy, my boy. But he was never going to get anywhere near that, and it just, I don't know, it came across as cruel. It was weird.
That was really weird. And then from that episode, Something to Wrestle with, Pritchard basically saying that he always thought that King just treated Brian Christopher a bit like the rest of the guys backstage, and there was never really a father-son relationship there. It just makes it seem all the more odd.
Yeah.
It's a bit sad. But yeah, Brian Christopher refers to Taka Michinoku as a slatty-eyed something at one point.
Yeah.
And JR immediately nipped that in the bud as soon as he said it. Like, what is that? I know it's 1998 and all that, but God almighty.
Yeah.
Also, King refers to him as a waste of skin.
Yeah, I did put that one in my notes, because I get the heel commentator thing, and you know, he's probably trying to be over the top with the heel because he's got Brian Christopher allegiances, but yeah, he went a bit far a few times, I think.
I think it very much felt, and like obviously we know that we get, I think his name is Aguila, who we spoke about, is Sunday Night Heat legend Essa Rios, but we get him versus Taka at WrestleMania. It very much felt like they're building towards Brian Christopher versus Taka at WrestleMania, but it doesn't seem to happen, obviously.
Strange.
And we seem to be getting a little thing between Taka Michinoku and Sonny as well, but I don't think
King is furious with that. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah.
This match was forgettable.
Yep.
And I think we spoke about the sort of comparison between the light heavyweight title picture in WWF versus the cruiserweight picture in WCW the last time when we were talking about these type of matches, and Pritchard's sort of view, but I found this really interesting, and it doesn't hold up to me at all. Interesting to see what you think about it. He said that Vince didn't like the way that the WCW cruiserweight division was like a car crash, in your face, non-stop all the time, whereas he wanted his light heavyweights to be more methodical in the ring, and that to me is totally backward from what we've seen so far, because you had Jericho basically putting on a kind of clinic against Rey Mysterio and isolating body parts, and also you've got guys like Dean Malenko in there as well.
Yeah, I don't think it does hold up at all, and it's not just that, because as you say, there is a lot of methodical stuff going on the WCW side, but what it tended to be on the WCW side was if you had a guy who was a bit more mat-based wrestling, it would be him against one of the high flyers. That's the usual way. But I think the whole reason that the division was getting some success in WCW was because it was a different pace and it was a different style. And if WWE were going to try to make a luchador or someone like of a Japanese style, say, fight or wrestle the WWE way, then that's just watering it down to being more of their normal. I don't know why you would do it.
It would just be the same as any other match on the card. Yeah. It's a bit weird take. And also, these guys in WCW, you felt, although they were different, they were like a main part of the roster.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like how Taka Michinoku, like we've not seen Pantera before. We might have seen him on Raws before, but like from what we've been watching, we've not seen him before. It just feels like a random person who is wrestling against Taka. Here's a light heavyweight guy. So yeah, doesn't add up. Sorry, Bruce.
Yeah.
Next match is also fairly forgettable. As far as I was concerned, anyway, you've got two heel tag teams, the Quebecers and the Godwins.
Yeah. I think I have the least notes for this match that I've got for the entire thing, which probably shows how much I was invested in it.
I had to look up to see if that was actually the Mountie.
Yeah.
Which it is. Jacques Rougeau.
Yep. I got the impression they were trying to, even though it's heel v heel, trying to make the Quebecers the real heels in there by being overly Canadian. How dare they?
Outrageous.
And then the Godwins, I don't think it was an attempt to turn them face. I think it was just who they wanted the crowd behind that night. But it just felt like a nothing match. It felt like filler.
It did, didn't it?
And it's it's a whole 11 minutes of filler, which is quite a lot when you're just not at all invested in the match.
Yeah, there was a couple of things went on that I've got written down. That both Quebecers are actually quite good in the ring. But yeah, like the biggest sort of highlight / lowlight for me was when there was a mention of Bill Clinton and King said, "Where's Lee Harvey Oswald when his country needs him?"
Wow.
But I thought it was a bit over the top.
Wow.
Yeah, the Godwins win kind of out of nothing, and then they come in the ring and hit them both with their slot buckets and leave.
Yeah.
There's not much going on here. There's not even a storyline, really.
Have you heard much of the Pierre character in his later guises? I think he's on, oh God, who's he with? Is he Ring of Honor, I think.
Yeah, he's on a bunch of indies. What was his name?
PCO, yes. He goes by now.
And he's apparently just a maniac in the ring.
Yeah, and I'm quite intrigued, but I've never actually seen anything of his.
Yes, I didn't realise that was him, and I always, the way that hold on, I'll bring it up and then I'll speak about it. So I read a book, and it was kind of like talking about the New Japan scene, and basically the whole scene with the exception of WWE, and it was leading right up to All In, which was that first event with the guys that now do AEW, the very first event that they did before AEW was even a thing.
Yeah.
And within that book, there's some really good bits about that character. What did you say it was called? PCO. PCO,
yeah.
I can't remember what the book's called. I think it's called Too Sweet by Keith Greenberg. It's a really good. I listened to the audiobook. It's a really good listen. Okay. And yeah, this is where I learned about him, and it talked about him like basically completely reinventing his style as a sort of kamikaze high flying character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought he sounded interesting when I've heard him referenced. But yeah, I had to, when I was watching the match, because I looked up the Quebecers and I was trying to, the same as you, think to myself, is that the Mountie? And I just clicked on the wrong name first, and when it came up as, was it Pierre Carl Ouellette? And I thought, oh, what's all his ring names? And I thought PCO, that's that guy.
He's a big lad.
He is, yeah. I'm not sure if he's quite as big now. I think he's maybe slimmed down a bit.
I quite like the eye patch. I don't know why he had that on. I don't know if it was part of his character. It made him look like a bit of a beast.
Yeah.
Oh well, moving on. By the way, there's a certain irony in the Canadians being the heel team, where you've got another guy in the team wearing the Confederate flag t-shirt. But anyway, next match we've got our boys, the NWA, in the midst of their invasion of WWF. We've got Jeff Jarrett defending his North American NWA. Is it
North American NWA world title, I think,
against Bradshaw.
Yeah.
We've got Jeff Jarrett coming out with the Rock and Roll Express and Barry Windham.
Yep.
And James E. Cornette with his loaded badminton racket or tennis racket or whatever it is that he's got with him.
Yeah.
We then get Bradshaw coming out. I was convinced that was a fake moustache he had. I was pausing it. It's so, I don't know, it just looks fake. And he's got a big, what do you call that?
I think they referred to it as a bull rope.
Bull rope.
Yeah.
And he's also got quite a fetching pair of leather chaps on, which he decides to use as a weapon as well. He's so stiff in the ring. Or what looks like stiff in the ring anyway. He's so aggressive.
Yeah.
Not much changed, really. He seems to have went through quite a lot of different characters, even in the short time we've been watching here. I think he was Black Hawk, was he? But around about the Rumble time, was he Black Hawk Justin Bradshaw, or is that before?
Justin Hawk Bradshaw.
Bradshaw. Yeah. Now he's just Bradshaw. We've given him the Riddle treatment.
Yeah, he was Blackjack Bradshaw, and then Hawk Bradshaw, but because he was originally aligned with Barry Windham as the new
right.
Blackjacks, I think they
that's
were.
That's right. He screwed him, didn't he?
Yeah, he turned on him, I think, and then immediately aligned with the NWA guys. I just still don't care about it, the NWA stuff when it's going on.
I quite. Are you still not invested? No.
Nah, and I think I didn't even hate the match or what was going on. With the, you've obviously got the NWA guys all grouping together, and then I think I'm right in thinking the Rock and Roll Express and Wyndham were sent from ringside, but then at the end of the match, Jarrett uses the tennis racket on Bradshaw, DQ in for Bradshaw, Wyndham and the Express come out to help, and then you've got LOD coming out to even up the numbers, and I thought, right, if this is going somewhere, that's all fine, okay, but I don't know if it's the Jarrett character specifically in this NWA role. I don't know, I just can't get into it, and there were some elements of Jeff Jarrett through his career that I didn't mind. I don't know what it is about this whole thing, because I like Jim Cornette as well. I like him as a heel manager. I like him doing his little snippets talking about real wrestling and things like that. But I don't know, as soon as they come out and I see Jarrett and it's under the NWA umbrella, I just struggle to care.
There's something about the Rock and Roll Express looking like they've been jumped out of like an old folks' home.
Yeah.
I think they're only, from what I've read, they're only in their like early 40s here. They look like they're about 80.
They look so old, and it doesn't help anything that's involved, because if you've got this, I think it's even referenced by JR a couple of times that these guys were legends in their time. And the fact that he kind of dates it by saying in their time. And it feels as well like the whole NWA had a time and it's gone, and I'm just not buying it as any kind of invasion.
So I was listening, obviously got a lot of spare time, the pair of us. I was listening to sort of the background about how this all came about on Cornette's podcast, and basically he'd been cutting these sort of promos in the creative meetings about we need to be doing.
Can you hear a cat? I apologise.
Oh, is it a cat? I thought it was one of my boys crying. I was like, is one of my children crying in your house?
Apologies. It's leaving the room now.
It's always good to have guests on the podcast. Our first. So what was it? So Cornette was kind of cutting these promos about you need to have real wrestling, southern wrestling, get that back on the TV. So Vince was like, do you know what? Like, can you get us in touch with the NWA? Let's do something. So he'd phoned Cornette randomly one night, and apparently the NWA people had been trying to get hold of Vince for months because they wanted to try and do something together, and they'd been ignoring it. And then, as it seems like Vince sort of does, he had a change of heart. So he phoned up Cornette and got him to contact the NWA. I think Jarrett was coming over at this point, and they basically wanted some guys to come with him and represent as the NWA, but Vince had said, give him the NWA title and send him over, and they were like, not a chance. Like, we've got an NWA champion. I don't know who it was at the time, but he kind of just bring the belt with him. So that I think they'd created this spanking new belt and called it North American title, and he'd brought it with him. So, like, as with most things, it was kind of random, and I think it had been a way of sort of giving Cornette a bit of rope to hang himself, because he'd been going on and on.
Right. Yeah.
Which is kind of like the sort of stuff that we've heard about Heyman before as well.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's just a wee bit of background on that, and I think we see the night after, or the week after on the Raw, we get one of these Cornette style promos where he's talking about the NWA and the type of wrestling and how the audience doesn't appreciate it and all that sort of stuff. So that kind of ties into that. Okay. Yeah. So like you said, I think we get, what do we get? A Bradshaw win via DQ.
Yeah.
And there is reference throughout this sort of portion, and also during the the kind of bookended Raws about the Legion of Doom being over the hill as well.
Yeah, it's. I think it's mentioned so often that you can't actually help but notice it, because they talk about them being out of step quite a few times, and then talk about how, you know, in their heyday they were unstoppable, and you do have some counters of people saying, you know, I think they look as good as ever, which, you know, doesn't sound very realistic really, but yeah, I think it's, to me, it all ties in as being part of pushing the Nation, not the Nation, the Outlaws, because they've kind of taken them out and humiliated them a bit and things like that, because they don't really talk about Chainsaw Charlie and Terry Funk in the same way, but Terry Funk must be as old as LOD members.
I would have said he was older.
Yeah,
probably.
But it feels like a bit of a burial at times.
Yeah, it's almost like acknowledging the elephant in the room sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's quite odd. And we know that they're, at this point, in a month or so, we're going to get them repackaged as LOD 2000, and that's probably going to be quite short-lived as well. It's a weird one.
Yeah.
So, after this, we get... do we get an Austin promo? Very short Austin promo.
What I've got on my notes is it's a Triple H in China.
Oh, that's what it is.
Promo talking about the fact that I think Triple H says he's had people beating down the door. He's had calls non-stop because everyone wants to be in DX, but he says nobody can replace Shawn Michaels, so they're going to go
3 versus 4.
Yeah, and that's when Cole tells him that WWF officials will appoint a partner. Triple H says he doesn't care, they'll win regardless, they don't need the help of whoever that'll be.
Here we go, building up expectations. Oh, who could it be? Who are they going to be?
Yeah.
And then we get possibly the highlight of the pay-per-view. The Nation of Domination are interviewed by Doc Hendricks.
Yep.
And Doc Hendricks asks to speak to the leader of the Nation of Domination, and The Rock begins to speak, and Farouk cuts him off, as Farouk will.
Yeah, he says something about how he would whip it, or he will whip his ass, or whoop his ass, or something like that. It's brilliant. I think we both talked before about how much we love this Rock, because his facials, his arrogance, just being that nippy, you know, youngster that's trying to be the big guy. It's just brilliant.
That's brilliant. It really, really is. And he spends... I could not tell you what Farouk was saying the rest of this promo. I was just watching The Rock the whole time, and he's like flexing his chest and like nodding over towards Farouk, like, what is he like? Look at me, I'm the Intercontinental Champion. And then he does that classic gif, massive big eye roll.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Properly iconic. So good.
Fantastic.
I think the eye roll comes when Farouk talks about the sort of mean streets that he grew up on or something like that.
It's comedy gold.
It's brilliant. So that takes us into a War of Attrition match. Adam, what's a War of Attrition match?
Well, I don't know, because it just seems like it's a tag match. And the thing is, if you're calling it War of Attrition, I'm imagining a pretty long match. You know, it's 13-14 minutes.
Is it really?
Yeah. And I mean, did they ever clear up what they mean by War of Attrition?
So we have a really weird sort of conversation between King and JR, and King's kind of saying, you don't know what attrition means, do you? And JR saying, yes I do. No you don't. Yes I do. Well, what does it mean? And then JR describes it as an elimination. So I'm like, okay, so that makes sense. This is a 10-man tag. An elimination match would make sense. Mm-hmm. And I'm waiting during the match, and it's going on for quite a long time, and they're isolating various members of DOA, and then it finishes and nobody got eliminated. It's weird. like you say, why call it a War of Attrition match and then just make it a Survivor Series match?
Yeah, that was
No,
weird.
that would be an elimination match, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was just a one fall tag match, and yeah, I think. What were your thoughts on Ahmed Johnson?
My favourite part of this match was when he was lying on his side and D'Lo hit the frog splash on him. He was like, I'm hitting this regardless of whether you're in the right position or not. That was really weird. He's awful. He's so bad. He's over. He's proper over as well.
And I was actually surprised that he got a good reaction, just because I've always thought of him as this guy that couldn't work. He's, and it's kind of what he's known for, that he wasn't good. And I kind of was shocked by the positive reaction he got.
It's crazy. It's his look. It has to be his look, because he does look amazing.
Yeah.
Apart from the knee pads. Too many knee pads, Ahmed, but he does look amazing, but he's just awful.
Yeah.
He looks like he would hurt somebody.
Uh-huh.
And then I was really laughing when D'Lo did that frog splash. Do you know the kind of spot that I'm talking about?
Yeah.
It's funny. I just felt this was quite a messy match overall.
Yeah.
Like too much going on.
Mm-hmm.
DOA just feel like they're there to make up the numbers.
Absolutely. This
is like Shamrock versus The Rock, D'Lo, Mark Henry and Farouk, kind of.
Yeah, I think there had been quite a bit of animosity between Ahmed and Farouk at points in there, because I think Ahmed was in the Nation very briefly, and then was kind of thrown out. And Farouk, having been, despite what The Rock may think, the leader of the Nation, I think they'd had a programme and there'd been quite a lot of animosity between them. But it does feel like it's the Rock and Shamrock is the big story going on in the match, really.
Yeah, I remember we've spoke about a match on here. I want to say it was a WrestleMania match between Ahmed and Farouk? And Ahmed was like Pearl River plunging poor random guys through tables and stuff, and it was horrible.
I think that's right, yeah.
It was when the Nation had like these two little white rapper guys came out with them.
That was a strange situation.
An odd mixture.
Yeah.
Like this again. This is quite similar to the Mero and Goldust Headbangers match. It moves forward the Farouk and Rock issue that we've kind of got going on. It moves forward Rock and Shamrock as well, and it's got to lead into their Intercontinental title match. And I think it does a good job of doing that. The rest are kind of like chess pieces round about.
Yeah, it's quite good actually, because that The Rock taps out to Shamrock in the ankle lock in the match, because you know Rock's Intercontinental Champion. They've already had a match for the belt. Shamrock's already been screwed out of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they've already been confirmed for Mania as another match, but we know they're having one. And it keeps that moving along, because Shamrock can beat The Rock. He's kind of got his number if all is fair, but all is not going to be fair, just because the sort of the way the team affiliations go. But it does a good job moving Rock and Farouk on, because at the end of the match, obviously the previous Raw, Rock had kind of made the save by hitting Shamrock right in the face with the steel chair, and Rock isn't very pleased with Farouk for not making any kind of save for him. So Rock gives Farouk a shove, and poor D'Lo
he ends up getting it in the face.
Yeah, gets a punch from Farouk, and then I love D'Lo. He's one of my favourites, but he's so animated and angry, and he's why'd you punch me? And you've got the Rock walking away, and then Farouk almost being, like a angry father trying to get his misbehaving son back in line and ordering him back into the ring to stand and do the salute, which I thought it was all well done.
Me too. I like that he did get him back in the ring, and they did all come back together again. And it's really interesting because you've had the Royal Rumble where we saw basically all members of the nation fighting each other.
Yeah.
And then they've come back together again. You've had these little falling outs. You've got the sort of issues between Rock and Farouk, and I think I agree with you. I think it is really well done. Because now you would have them fall out and that'd be it. They'd probably have a couple of tag team matches on Raw and it'd be done.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Next up, we get the match that I was excited about when I saw that we were doing this pay-per-view. Sometimes when you get excited about things and then you open on your presents on Christmas morning and you just, it can be disappointing.
Yeah, I felt bad because I'd watched this before you and I knew this was the match you were looking forward to, and I thought and I think I tried to encourage you to just get it all watched by saying, you've got to get to Vader Kane, and I already knew but I just needed to make sure you were getting it watched.
Well, I certainly watched it. If I would, is Vader still with us? No, he's not, is he?
No, I think that's maybe just last year.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think so.
Two big men like this, and I think this will be the third pay-per-view in a row where we've had two big men sort of clash, haven't we? Isn't it?
Yeah.
This was probably the worst of the lot, and that's saying something given the Kevin Nash powerbomb we saw on the Giant.
Yeah, although at least the moves look fairly safe in this.
Well, true. They just... there's no point in going hammer and tongs for 30 seconds and then looking absolutely gassed out for the rest of the match. Vader looked like he was going to pass out.
I think that has actually long been a criticism.
Oh, really?
It was the shape he was in and the work ethic, because I think based on podcasts I've listened to and stuff like that, and I'm sure it was all covered by Pritchard, because I think Conrad was a massive Vader fan and always really disappointed by what they did with him. And when they talked about it, I think that he basically said that the Vader that they hoped they were getting wasn't really the guy that they got, and they had to just use him as best they could, because he wasn't in the kind of shape they would have wanted him to be in. So I don't know if that maybe plays into the style of, or the length of a match like this, and it just wasn't good.
Nah. There was a few times where Kane was bouncing off the ropes with the Irish whip, and he basically was stotting his way over at the ropes.
Yeah.
It's quite sad. To be fair to him though, he gets up and he hits that moonsault for the top rope.
Yeah.
Which is quite impressive.
Yeah, and I assume they're using Vader to put Kane over, really. And it's kind of sad when you look at it like that, because he's been such a huge star himself in other companies and things like that. Maybe they needed to get him a few years earlier to really make something of him, but they're putting Kane over as their massive monster that can go toe to toe with and beat the Undertaker, and I think they just looked and thought this is a way to really underline that. Yeah,
and for that point of view it works perfectly.
Yeah.
Kane is essentially no-selling most of the things that Vader's doing, and when he hits that moonsault off the top rope, he's straight back up almost. At one point they start selling the fact that Kane's only got one eye, or he can only see out of one eye. They're really JR's going over the top of that. Vader is using the fire extinguisher again, and hitting him with that, but Vader power bombs him.
And I think they kind of protect that a little bit, don't they? Because there's a distraction by Paul Bearer. It's not that he just gets up fine from that. I think there is a little bit of protection of the move.
It basically turns from there and Kane hits the tombstone, and that's... Well, I was going to say that's it, but that's not it.
No.
Because Kane... At one point, when Vader pulls out the fire extinguisher, a toolbox comes out as well. And Kane goes and finds what I can only describe as a floppy foam wrench or something.
It's so bad. I mean, it looks massive. And these are huge guys, but somehow the wrench is like bigger than them. And it was also totally unnecessary because, you know, you've just had Kane go over strong, and you could have actually had, like, Vader, because he ends up getting stretchered out. You could have had him get stretchered out from the finish if you really wanted to sell Kane. But no, for some reason, there's a massive wrench.
At one point, Kane is standing on it, and you can see that he's like all sort of realism is out the window because Kane stands on it and flattens it with his foot. So that's, what does that say about Vader? He's been taken out with a foam spanner from the shows.
He's definitely past it.
Like you say, like he's hit the moonsault, he's hit him with a power bomb. You could sell it as he's given him everything he's got, and still succumbed, and the tombstones finished him off. But
too straightforward.
We need to sports entertainment it up for a little bit. So that leads us straight in to the unveiling of the fourth man. Yeah. Savio Vega. I think he even comes out before his music comes out. So that, shit, let me get this over with. They're going to boo me out the building. I better get out there.
It's a shame for him in a way. I mean, he's getting in a main event spot, but he's put in a pretty awful situation because they're the heels, so it's fine that he gets booed, but it's not even a booing, it's more just a deflation, like an underwhelmed. That did nothing to help anyone.
So the kind of story of this match is that Chainsaw Charlie and Cactus Jack come out, just start filling the ring. Oh no, sorry, what we should say is that we get the announcement, which they tended to do a lot of the time round about this time, was to say something's changed about this match, and this time it was that it's not sanctioned by WWF because of the damage they could do to each other. Yeah, but we've still got a ref though. Yeah,
it was a bit, I don't know.
Here's an excuse for us to use all these weapons and make it look like an ECW match. A lot of time they'll go, and this match is now non-disqualification, and they went through a period of doing that a lot. But they say this is non-sanctioned. Funk and Foley fill the ring with weapons. Austin comes out to an outrageous pop.
Like, I know it's in Texas, the event, but there's a few crowd reactions that I remember, and this is one of them. Like, I remember the time Austin comes out the night that Mick Foley wins the belt. He comes out on a Raw, and the reaction when the glass shatters is outrageous. I think he basically just goes in the ring, hits The Rock with a steel chair, puts Mick Foley over him. But this is up there with the biggest, just, it's an explosion, the crowd.
Totally. And I've just got written here, this is just basically like a chaotic giant hardcore match. Yeah. Which it kind of is. There's a point where Terry Funk hits the Road Dogg with something. I've absolutely no idea what it was. It was big and long and floppy and wet.
Okay, wasn't that wrench? No.
No. Do you know what I'm talking about? No.
No.
Like, if I had to guess, I would have said it was a fish.
Okay.
It wasn't, obviously, but that's what it looked like. Now I think about it, it might have been Bradshaw's chaps.
Wow.
No, I'm genuinely serious. Like, if they were lying about, it hit him with something that was really weird looking. Okay. We've got just all sorts going on. Owen Hart puts Billy Gunn through a table. We've got numerous people getting hit with trash can lids, bin lids. Yeah. It goes a bit crazy to start off with, and you're kind of looking about everywhere because there's so much going on.
Yeah, I think what I remember is they eventually kind of settle and it becomes a tag match, which I almost found a bit illogical. I mean, it's an unsanctioned match, so why are they following any rules from a certain point onwards? It's like the ref somehow, who's probably Earl Hebner, somehow gains control of all these guys when they don't have to. It seemed a bit strange, but at least when it became a tag match, there was a little bit of order. You could kind of follow what was going on.
Yeah. JR does make reference to that. He says something about them. The referee seems to have got control of this match or something, like they've settled down it or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know about you, but so there's a couple of big spots that after that, you've got the barbed wire, which is just horrendous.
Yeah.
Because you actually see Foley pulling it out of his neck.
Yep.
And it's like it's stuck into his neck.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Is it Savio Vega that introduces?
I think, yeah, he brings it in and starts wrapping it around him. It is horrible. Quite uncomfortable watching. And I know compared to some of the things they do, a few cuts here and there and things like that, probably not too bad, but it just looks horrible.
Yeah, it really does.
It's in his mouth, isn't it? I don't know if any of the actual, if because it looks like some of the wire's just wire, and they've maybe got safe areas on it, but it's just not nice to look at.
Oh, I was cringing when he was pulling at it, and it was like pulling away his skin at his neck. I don't know about you, but when Austin, I was really surprised when Austin came into the ring at how like explosive, fast he looked. He was amazing. Yeah,
because he's already had his neck problems here.
Yeah.
And I think I had it in my mind that he had to slow right down after that, but what I do remember maybe picking up more on is he just maybe took less bumps and became more of just a brawler.
He did a lot less.
Yeah. But you're right. I mean, the pace, the intensity of all of it was probably more than I remembered it being.
I was really surprised. And the match closes really quickly. Basically, Austin gets in the ring, beats everybody up, hits Road Dogg with a stunner, and that's it.
Yeah.
I was really surprised.
Yeah. I think it's maybe because it takes so long for it to settle into an actual match, because the sort of, if I look at the time that's against it on the good old Wikipedia page, it's 17 and a half minutes, but so much of that isn't, a tag match. It's just craziness going on. It's probably only a tag match for a few minutes. But yeah, it does end pretty abruptly, and then we've got the situation with China.
Right, let's talk about this. So if I was watching this now with access to the internet and being able to message you or whatever, I'd be saying, oh no, they're setting China up to get involved in Austin Michaels. So China was really concerned about where the belt was.
Yeah.
Then you've got this big face-off between Austin and China.
Yeah.
You've got the absolutely uncontrollable pop from the crowd when he hits her with a stunner. And then on the following Raw, you get like a package about China.
Yeah.
About her career.
Yeah, you're right, because I mean that package about China's career, they don't do that for you don't see packages like that. It's pretty rare to get something like that, and it seemed like it was designed to put her over, to put it in your mind that she could compete with anyone. So
it's quite odd. Like if they're just maybe the only thing that I was thinking, I can't remember if this was referenced or not, was to GR maybe say that'll be that could be Mike Tyson at WrestleMania, so maybe it was to possibly say like Austin do that to anybody sort of thing or whatever. I think I'd be getting scared if that was happening now. And
the announcers are putting Austin over right at the end. I think they're talking about how Michaels and Tyson should both be worried about what could happen to them at the hands of Austin, but then right at the end, JR, it's like he's had a word in his ear. You have to put over Michaels. People can't assume this is a cakewalk. So he describes Michaels as the greatest WWF champion of all time, and says, as if he's been possessed by Michaels briefly, he will lay down for nobody.
Amazing. Nobody. Away and gargle some sand, Sean.
Yeah.
Nobody's interested. That's funny. So that was the pay-per-view. What do you make it overall?
Didn't love it.
Nah.
It's not... The highlights for me weren't really in ring. The whole promo of the Nation was great. It just that got me. And you know, they do move it forward in the ring, which is fine. The Austin reaction that he got when he came out is something that stuck with me after the show as well. I think it, like you say, it moved things along. There was quite a lot that felt like filler on the card. And I think, you know, we've mentioned this before, and we're probably going to mention it as we keep going through the year. The roster doesn't seem to be that deep, because there's a lot of mid-card guys, and that's probably being polite about it, that seem to be in quite prominent spots. So yeah, I didn't love it as a show. It had a couple of moments that got me, and that's about it, really.
Yeah, I agree. Like I said, right at the start, we're very much on the road to WrestleMania here, and we're throwing some breadcrumbs down along as we go. Nothing more, nothing less. What jumped out at you about the Raw after that might have progressed things along?
Yeah, there were a couple of things. There was a slightly weird situation where JR's talking about a rumour that DX is contemplating a lawsuit on Austin because of what they did to China the night before. I don't know, that just feels a little bit out of place. I don't know what they were going for with that, really.
And we didn't get any DX members on that episode of Raw at all, did we?
They're not on the show at all, which I don't have a problem with a lot of the time. I think you can keep things fresh and keep people, you know, wanting more by having people off shows, although on the run-up to Mania, it seemed quite odd. I think they mentioned that they would be on the next week.
Yeah, that felt really odd. I know that this was a special Saturday night edition of Raw, but Kevin Kelly was getting very animated about things happening next Monday on Raw, and it's like, but this is Raw.
Yeah.
I found it quite odd.
It was strange. You've got a little bit more with the Jackal and Sniper and Recon. It's basically like the same situation, but with the other wrestler getting annoyed with the Jackal. And then, you know, seemingly the Jackal seems pleased with everything that's going on and how worked up he's getting people and things like that, and they never seem to actually go for him or physically, you know, try anything with him. It's like he has some sort of hold over them.
Where's Kurgan?
Is Kurgan... He was in the Truth Commission, wasn't he?
I think so, aye. Yeah. Maybe he's getting his nails looked at. Those big long black things he had on his fingers.
Yeah, I'm not sure where he is. I don't know if they're doing a little rebuild of the Truth Commission or something like that.
Possibly. Do you know that the Truth Commission was a Bret Hart thing? Bret was convinced that this was going to be big. Yeah,
I'd heard that or read it somewhere. I don't know if it ever really got off the ground, but we've got a little bit of progression of the Mark Merrow and Sable situation. Merrow's saying he's sick of being painted as the bad guy. He talks about having seen Sable on TV with an Austin t-shirt on, and she's trying to become the star and steal his spotlight, but she can't win wrestling matches. He questions why she dresses the way she dresses. He actually says she knows her place and she belongs to him. This was in this interview with the King. Yeah. That's horrible. And Lawler talks about Sable having knocked Merrow on his butt, and Merrow tries to explain it away by saying he'd slipped. And she gets flowers delivered, won't say who they're from. Merrow's furious. He's getting very worked up. So yeah, we've got that. We have a bit more NWA on the show. There's Headbangers v Rock and Roll Express for the NWA tag titles, and the Rock and Roll Express retain on a technicality because it's NWA rules, and the Headbangers throw one of the Rock and Roll Express over the top rope, which is against the NWA rules, just as the ref is counting the 3.
This was weird.
Yeah.
And they also made a big deal of saying how much integrity this NWA referee had.
Yeah.
It's almost like they were going for the kind of Nick Patrick type thing. It was that's really odd.
Yeah. We've got Austin in the ring as soon as the war zone part of the show starts. JR's to do an interview with him. He's asked about the China situation, and Austin says that as soon as somebody steps through the ropes, their ass belongs to him. And then he says he knows Michael's at home preparing for Mania. He wants Michaels to be resting so he can whip his ass at his best. And he says that Tyson better not stick his nose in Austin's business. We've got that, I think you mentioned it earlier, the Jeff Jarrett Owen Hart European title match. So Owen retains when Cornette interferes. We do have Owen Hart putting the sharpshooter on Cornette.
Yes, that's good.
And then they confirm the Mania match for Owen v Triple H. We've got Michael Hayes in what I assume is his hometown, because there's quite a big reaction. And they're kind of referencing the fact that they don't call him Michael Hayes. They call him Doc Hendricks, but he is actually Michael Hayes. He's one of the Freebirds, and they were big here, so he comes out for the big reaction, but it's all a setup, so Kane destroys him.
Does it make you uncomfortable when he dances and stuff?
Yeah, it does.
He was on... sorry, go on.
I bet he still does it, and I'd probably feel even more uncomfortable now.
So last night, I don't know if you've watched NXT at all. I imagine you will have, because you're not really watching anything, are you?
No.
So I watched NXT from last night, which I've been enjoying, and they're obviously doing an In Your House pay-per-view, so it's all, I think that's on Sunday, so it's all kind of like retro look and feel. So they have this Doc Hendricks Slam Jam little sort of bit where he talks about the matches that are going to be on the card, but he's calling himself like handsome Doc Hendricks and like rubbing his face and all this. And so he is still doing this sort of thing. It's very uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Need X-Pac to cut his ponytail off again.
I mean, it's all for Kane to get the heat, destroying the popular guy in his hometown. We've got a bit more with Brian Christopher, where he's teaming with a guy called Morgan against Taka and Aguila.
What does he say as he's walking out to the ring? I went and found me a Mexican.
Yes, that is exactly what he says.
What the fuck?
We've got Sonny again, always good, always nice. And then I think when Taka wins the match for his team, it's Morgan that takes the defeat, and Lawler is blaming the partner, blaming basically Brian Christopher picking the wrong partner as the reason that all went wrong. And we've got a fantastic segment with the Nation.
Yes.
This was actually like the saviour of the entire 3 shows for me. This is one of my favourite segments ever, and I couldn't remember when it happened, but I had a feeling based on everything we've seen that it must have been coming up soon, and my fear was we wouldn't watch the Raw that it happened on.
Right.
But we did. So we've got the Rock. It's about to be a Farouk v Steve Blackman match. So the Nation come out, and the Rock is going to be showing his appreciation to the Nation. He wants to clear up any suggestions of dissent and prove he's grateful to them and harbours no ill feelings. So he presents Kama, D'Lo and Mark Henry, each with, I think they say $15,000 solid gold Rolex watches.
Yep.
And they're all quite, they're selling it. They're quite overwhelmed with this gift they've been given. Rock he's carrying this picture frame. Well, it's obviously shaped like a picture frame, wrapped gift, and he says he's got something special for Farouk. And he says Farouk is the only leader in the nation, and he has a gift which demonstrates his respect and admiration for Farouk. He hands it over. He's like, trying to encourage him to hurry up and open it. Rock looks so happy with what's going on. He's selling this brilliantly. Farouk looks, he's just seen the other guys get their watches. He's looking quite, well, as enthusiastic as Farouk ever really looks. He looks quite pleased with what's going on, and then when he opens it, it's a picture of The Rock. It's just one of the best segments I can remember. Farouk throws it down. Rock looks so insulted and offended. The match is then, Blackman comes into the ring. The match is then going on in the ring. I think they mention actually Blackman's undefeated.
Yeah.
So he's on an undefeated run. Farouk's the favourite for the match. The Rock is still carrying this picture outside the ring.
He's like showing it off to the crowd and all that.
He's holding it up. He's looking so pleased with himself. And then Farouk, who's in the ring, grabs the picture and he's gesturing to use it on Blackman. But he can't quite get the picture. Blackman takes advantage of the distraction, rolls him up for the win, and then Farouk destroys the picture. And The Rock's reaction to Farouk destroying it, he's hurt, he's angry, he's offended, he's wanting to go for really go for Farouk, and it ends up with the nation trying to get in between the rest of them, and Farouk leads the rest of the nation out of the ring, and backstage is The Rock. He's just standing in the ring holding the destroyed picture. It's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it really is. I keep saying I think this is my favourite version of The Rock, and then you see other versions in their class as well, but I genuinely think he's at his best here. Mm-hmm. He really is. And Farouk does an amazing job. See when he sees the picture and he's just so unimpressed. It's brilliant. It really is.
It's across all three programmes that I watched, it was by far my favourite segment. They do a little backstage where Michael Cole is trying to get an interview with the nation, and there's all this noise and banging and things like that coming from the closed locker room, and D'Lo kind of sneaks out and really unconvincingly tries to say everything's fine, no problems here and all that.
We've got a long flight ahead of us, he says. we're packing for a long flight ahead of us or something.
The only other thing we've got after that, which is Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie against Mark Mero and Goldust. We've got Sable Chance upsetting Mero. There's something about the fact Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie have apparently said they're going to wrestle more. They're going to do the extreme stuff less, and they're going to wrestle more, and they are actually doing it.
Right, okay. JR was making a big deal of what they were doing.
Yeah, because they're executing quite a few moves, and I think JR's trying to sell it as, they're out wrestling them here and things like that. Sable, who's been sent back, comes back with her flowers from her secret admirer, and Mark Mero goes crazy. Luna destroys the flowers. Mero tells Sable to leave, and then Sable and Luna are wanting to get at each other. Mero's holding Sable back. All the while this is going on, Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie take the win in the ring against Goldust. So that's how it goes off air. It's a shame it didn't go off air with the Nation stuff, because that was awesome.
Something happens with Sable's clothing, and Errol Hebner seems to be confused as to whether or not he should try and close her clothes, but also risk it making it look like he's touching what appears to be hanging out.
Oh no.
And King says, "Did you just see that?" He's very excited.
So yeah, I had I can now see how there may have been confusion, because I kept encouraging you to watch.
Get to the end of the Raw, you kept texting me.
And you must have been thinking, what a perv, he's just talking about something that he's seen. But no, I was talking about the Nation stuff.
I thought you were talking about Errol Hebner's reaction. He's kind of, like what you would describe as like a kind of classic girl fight with the T-Rex arms and they're like slapping at each other. He's kind of doing that.
Okay.
So yeah, that's what I thought you were trying. I was a bit like, oh, okay. That's an odd thing for you to be getting excited about.
I meant the Nation stuff. Don't worry.
That makes sense. So yeah. an interesting stepping stone to WrestleMania, basically, and we'll get to that probably in a couple of episodes' time, maybe 3 episodes' time, if we've got an ECW pay-per-view to do as well.
Yeah.
Next time we'll be doing Super Brawl 8 back in WCW, so interesting to see if that's a better show than Sold Out. I really hope it is, Adam.
Yeah, I find myself looking at the card just now, just to try and get a feel for what we've got coming up.
Hogan Sting?
Yeah, we do have Hogan Sting. I mean, that's almost as big as it gets. There's a few things on here that look okay, but it's mixed.
Martel, Booker T, that's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, we've got is this, I don't know how many pay-per-views he's been on. Have we seen Goldberg? Have we seen him much or many times?
No, so just once he destroys, what's the Road Dogg's dad called? Brian Armstrong? Bob Armstrong?
Brad Armstrong?
Brad Armstrong, aye. He was on an episode of Nitro and he destroyed him.
Okay. Well, he seems to be fighting Brad Armstrong again on this.
On the pay-per-view, does he?
Yeah.
I wonder what will happen in that.
We've got Jericho against Juventud.
Nice.
We've got DDP against Benoit.
Nice.
There's a few things on here.
That sounds promising. Look forward to that. I would suggest that we do Thunder pay-per-view Nitro.
Yeah,
rather than Nitro pay-per-view Nitro. So I think the last time we made the mistake of doing the Nitros and missed a good portion of the build-up. So
yeah, I think I mistakenly thought that Thunder was very much like the B show that didn't have the stars on it, but clearly storylines were moving and we were missing it. So yeah, that makes sense. Excellent.
Cool. Well, did you watch No Way Out of Texas in 1998? If you did, and if you enjoyed it as much as we did, just give us a shout on Twitter and on Instagram at Outlaws Pod. If you've watched it recently on the network, I'm really sorry. But at least you got to see the Quebecers versus the Godwins.
Yeah.
Anyway, we'll see you next time for Super Brawl 8. Until then, take it easy. Cheers, Adam.
Cheers.